normally, as I prepare a sermon, I have a scripture passage that I start with. That's one of the great things with preaching just straight through a book of the Bible is it's easy to decide what are you preaching on next, because you just take the next passage in the book of whatever you're preaching on and you study it and you find what God has to say out of that passage and you bring that to the church. Well, today it's actually started different. And I don't even know why this phrase just sort of resonating with me. Maybe you can't have it all. This past November, our staff went to the Right Now Media Conference and had a great time. I'll never forget one story that a guy told. Joby Martin, a preacher, he's a pastor, I think, in South Carolina. He's from South Carolina. I think he's actually pastoring in Florida. He was preaching it, and he showed this Instagram picture of his family. And he showed the caption that his son had put on it. And it said, it was this really sweet picture with all four, I think they had 2 kids, and, everybody in the picture was perfect. Hair was just right, the smile was perfect, everything was absolutely perfect in the picture. And his son captioned it, "The best family ever." And he talked about it, he said, you look at this picture, and you think that, man, Joby Martin has the perfect family. A boy, a son, a daughter, great-looking mom, great-looking dad. Everything was perfect. Everybody was smiles. And just everything in the picture was absolutely perfect. Well, then he spent like 10 minutes telling the story leading up to that picture. And let's just say, Joby Martin does not have a perfect family. It was complete and utter chaos. Mom was screaming and yelling at the kids. The kids were frustrated and mad. Dad was, he's already bald, but what hair he had, he wanted to pull out. It was complete and utter chaos. But when the camera was broken out, everybody, put that smile on their face and it just looked perfect. Man, social media will do that to us. Moms, you have so much pressure on you. Because you scroll through Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is you go through. And you see the pictures that people put up there. And their families just look so perfect. And you look around your house and you are like, they show pictures of their house and everything is spotless. They've got the fine china out. And you think, man, if I put fine china out, it would be broken in like 5 seconds. The bathrooms are spotless and you think, I'm not even sure I want to walk in my bathroom. There's so much pressure because of all the things that go on around us. We put pressures on us when it comes to our children. We want our kids to have it perfect. Or we want our kids to have everything in life. What we're going to talk about today is this. Maybe you can't have it all. I grew up in a family great family. We weren't rich. We weren't poor. We were just pretty much, right there in the middle. Everything I needed, I had. But one of the things that I look back on, that I remember the most, is something I'm going to challenge all of us with today. It wasn't having a fancy car. It wasn't having the best clothes. It wasn't any of those things. What I remember most from my growing up about my parents was that virtually every single night we sat down, and we never sat down at the table. The only time we sat at the dinner table was like when the preacher came over. And I think it's still that way at our house. At Mom's house, the only time we sit at the dinner table is when the preacher comes over. He comes over a little more often now, I think. This doesn't sound like a very good Baptist term, but we ate at the bar. And now, not the bar, that you have to go to, but that's what we just call this big long counter at our house. I don't know why they call it the bar. We just call it, that's where we ate. But virtually every night of the week, we sat down as a family and we ate dinner as a family. Sometimes that meant that dinner was served at 4 o'clock. Sometimes that meant dinner was served at 7 or 8 o'clock. The only night that we really would not eat dinner as a family growing up was when my dad had to work until 9. But what I remember then is when Dad would come home to eat, Mom would sit at the table at the bar with him. I remember having a guy that lived with us during my junior year in high school. At the time, he was working at Piggly Wiggly. And so there were times that he would not come home. He wouldn't get back to the house until 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And I remember every time he would come in, there'd be dinner. And somebody sat at the table with him, at the bar with him, while he ate. What's so important about having dinner as a family? Because that's where you bond. And I'm going to just go ahead and say, this is your challenge. If you take your connection card, under my response, I've got on there, we will have dinner, 3 dinners a week together as a family. I want to challenge you with that. I want to challenge you to have dinner as a family. Take the time. Now, some of you, it may be hard. I understand. And that's why maybe you can't have it all. That's why it's something I think we've got to think about. Because for many of us, the reason we cannot have family dinners together 3 times a week is because we have bought into this lie. To this lie of a new American dream. We're going to read in a little bit, we're going to read Proverbs chapter 31. The picture of the ideal life. I'm going to walk through that passage, and I'm going to hit some things, and as I hit them, I'm going to kind of give you maybe a little one-line application of a couple of points in there. Then we're going to get down to the very end of it. We're going to kind of spend some time talking, because all the other stuff that we're going to read, all of it until it gets to that very first 30, pretty much all of it, you don't have to be a Christian to do. It's just being a good person, hard-working person. But we're going to spend some time on verse 30 talking about that last point. But we have, I think, bought into the wrong American dream. First, got to ask the question, what was the American dream? Well, I Googled it. And here's what Google told me the American dream is. The ideal by which equality of opportunity is available to every American, allowing the highest aspirations and goals to be achieved. You know, this ideal has in many ways carried our nation for over 2 centuries. You notice there's not a guarantee of economic success. There's no entitlement to specific riches. But it is the opportunity to achieve the highest aspirations and goals. One day I was on a bike ride in Washington State with a friend of mine in our church. He's a fireman. We're riding along and we're up by the University of Washington, and he points over and he goes, "Hey Grant," he said, "what used to be my favorite bike shop is right over there." And I thought, well, what'd they do? Sell you a bad bike? Did they treat you bad? He said, "Oh no." He said, "We went from being a sick family, or a sink family, double income, no kids, to being a sick family, single income with kids." He said, "The bikes in that bike shop start at $3,000. That's the low-end bikes. They go up from there." And he said, "Back when we were a double income family with no kids, I could drop $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on a bike with no problem." He said, "Now I'm a single income and I have kids." And he said, $3,000 on a bike? That's ridiculous. So we had to change what we saw as our dream. So my dream before had been to always have the best bike, to never be riding and have somebody on a bike better than mine. So that used to be my dream. To He said, my dream has changed. The American dream. But what has it become? Somewhere along the way, we lost our understanding of the American dream. Now, instead of working for equal opportunity with a focus on the common good and higher ethics, I think that we have become so infatuated with fame, money, possessions. Even within the family unit, we've seen a loss of recognition of what is truly important. Instead of having a goal that is the highest goal, we've bought into another lie. Let's read Proverbs chapter 31, verses 10 through 31. The NIV says, a wife of noble character, who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax and works with her eager hands. She is like the merchant ships bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it's still night. She provides food for her family and portions for her female servants. She considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings she plants a vineyard. She sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her task. She sees that her trading is profitable and her lamp does not go out at night. In her hand she holds the distaff and grasps the spindle with her fingers. She opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. When it snows, she has no fear for her household, for all of them are clothed in scarlet. She makes coverings for her bed. She is clothed in fine linen and purple. Her husband is respected at the city gate, where he takes his seat among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them, and supplies the merchants with sashes. She is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household, and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children arise and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive, and beauty is fleeting. But a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Honor her for all that her hands have done, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate. I want to walk through this very quickly. I said down at the bottom, we're going to hang out for a minute. This is a model picture. Most women, you're here, you read this, and you look at it and you say, yeah, no way one woman can do all of that. And I would say to you, you're right. You can't. This is an idealized version. Her husband trusts her. Why? Because she has proven herself to be a person of honesty and integrity over years and years. Women, ladies, you want your husband to trust you? Then be trustworthy. Prove it not once, not twice, but day after day over decades. A trust is built. She works diligently, hard worker. It's seen not only in taking care of the home, but in other things. You know, in the modern world, many moms simply have to work. But I'll say this to you. Make sure, ladies, if you're working, make sure that it's what God wants you to do. Make sure that you're not working just so you can have the latest toys. But don't work just because you want to be able to have fancier stuff. Just because you got to keep up with the Jones. If you're working for that reason, then you ought to look at quitting. There are some families in our world where mom has to work. And honestly, there are some ladies that you're probably better off working. And I don't know, when our daughter was born, we made enough barely, and I mean barely, to survive without Denise working. After about a year, Denise went to work a couple of days a week. And she went to work not because we had to have the money. She went to work for her sanity. And I remember a lot of days that I would walk home. I would come into the house, and she would meet me at the door, and she would be holding our daughter, and she would hand her to me, and she would say, "Here she is. Either you take her and go, or I'm going." Now, guys, I just give you a word of advice. If your wife ever meets you at the door with that phrase, the only appropriate answer is, "Yes, ma'am, would you prefer, which would you prefer?" Don't buy into that rat race. Yes, work hard. But make sure that you're working because it's what God would want you to do. That you're working for the right reason. She cares for the needs of the family. She's generous to the needy. You know, moms will often set the pace of generosity. Moms have that tender heart, generally, that they want to give to others. I talked about the friend of mine that lived with us my junior year. You know, that's not the only person that lived in our house that wasn't part of our immediate family. There were others. I had at least 2 cousins that spent time living with us because they just needed a place for a short time. We had others throughout the years that stayed with us because my mom, my dad saw a need, saw they had a space, they met the need. Make your home the place that your kids' friends want to come. And moms, you set the stage, you set the pace there. Dads, we should do it. But the reality is, moms, you're going to probably be the one that sets the pace there. Make your home the place that the kids want to come. And you may think, well, that means we got to have all the fancy stuff, you know, the Xbox with a 70-inch flat screen TV, or a big swimming pool. That's not the case. We never had any of that stuff in my house. But people wanted to come there because it was a place that you could relax. A place that you knew somebody cared about you. Make your home be that place. Make it be the place that they want to come to. Because they just know, I'm going to be loved. I'm going to be cared for. This passage tells us that she is prepared for hardship. Here's another free advice. Couples, if you're just getting started, build an emergency fund. Dave Ramsey talks about building up a $1,000 emergency fund. Why? Because when you got the emergency fund, the reality is emergencies are going to happen. If you've got some money set in the bank and emergencies happen, no big deal. You withdraw it from your savings, you pay it, and you just keep putting back into your emergency fund. Using an emergency fund will decrease your reliance on credit cards that come with those crazy high interest rates and get you in problems. Build an emergency fund. That's really what it's talking about here in that section of Proverbs. It's saying that she was prepared for the future. She built an emergency fund. Make the family look good. Talks about her children are clothed in scarlet and purple. Those were the clothes, those were fancy clothes. Those were the clothes that the wealthy wore. You may hear that and go, Greg, but you just said don't try to keep up with the Jones. You don't have to. If you're smart, you go to Goodwill, and when the Jones get rid of their clothes that they've worn a time or two, you go buy their clothes from Goodwill for about 1/10 of the cost, and they still look pretty good. Reality is, most of the clothes in my wardrobe, if they're bought in a store, they're not bought at full price. A lot of the clothes that I wear come from Goodwill. And unless I tell you which ones they are, you probably are not going to know. Take care of your family. Make them look good. But you don't have to be expensive about it. She was known for dignity. Known for dignity. Social media. Make sure your kids aren't embarrassed by your social media posts. Make sure your kids are not embarrassed by the clothes that you wear. I saw an article not long ago. A school, I can't remember where it was, they instituted a dress code. Now most of us think, well, that's a great thing. They instituted a dress code. This was not a dress code for the students. It was a dress code for the parents. Moms, dress with dignity. When you post things on social media, do it with dignity. Be wise. Be smart in what you do. Then verse 30. I think the single most important part of this, because the reality is, all these things I've said before, do you have to be a Christian to do all of those things? No. That's all good stuff. But it's not, those things aren't based on being a Christian. It's just based on being a good, smart person. Verse 30. Charm is deceptive, beauty is fleeting. But a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. This is the single most important point. A woman who fears the Lord. Ladies, place God first in every decision. As you make decisions about what your family will do, put God number one. Make sure that is your focus. That honoring Christ in everything, that is your focus. Because if we do not honor God in everything, all the rest of it doesn't matter. Your kids can be clothed in the finest stuff. They can have all of the advantages. They can have every tutor that's going to make them be valedictorian in their high school class. They can be on every select team, and they can be the greatest person, and they can go and get a college scholarship and go play at the finest colleges and get a free education. But if we don't teach them to fear God, if we don't teach them to make God number one in their lives, none of that's going to matter. I know a family had a boy. It's a good family. They had a boy who was growing up. He's a good kid. This family, they were in church often. Then they found select baseball. And their son was good. He was a good baseball player. He was a good kid also. And they went through, and they would be at church until baseball season rolled around. And then they would disappear from church. And at first it was only the spring. But then they started playing summer ball and fall ball. And pretty soon, the family would be in church once a quarter. And the son did good. Did great. Got a Division I baseball scholarship. The family was so proud. He goes off to college. And before long, he's coming home in shame because he's been kicked off the team for drugs and alcohol. And the family comes to the pastor and they said to the pastor, "We don't understand. We did everything for him. We sacrifice so much for him. How can he do this? How can he turn his back on God? The pastor just looked at him and he said, he taught him. He said, unfortunately, what you taught him is that church is very important. Unless there's a baseball game to go to. They said what he decided is that he learned the lesson. God is very important unless there's something else to go do. Maybe you can't have it all. Folks, our goal should not be the American dream. Our goal for our children should be for them to be like Jesus Christ. To be conformed to his image. That should be our goal. It shouldn't be for our kids to get a Division I scholarship. Our goal shouldn't even be for our kids to go to college. Our goal should be for our kids to be like Jesus. And if that path leads them to a Division I scholarship, hallelujah. If it leads them to college, awesome. If it leads them to a trade school, if it leads them to somewhere else, great. But we should be focused on teaching our kids about Jesus. Making sure that they understand that he is the most important thing in life. That he is number one in life. We've got the responsibility of guiding our children on that path. And the only way to do that is to live it first in yours. In just a minute, we're going to have our time of invitation. Talk about families today. Most of you families, you got a good family. Yeah, you got the bumps in the road. We all do. Trust me. Spend a day, put a microphone in our house and spend a day listening to us, and they'll go, yep, family, pastor's family got some bumps in the road. We all do. None of us are perfect. And I'm just saying, if you think you got the perfect family, don't tell anybody. Because Satan's going to hear that and go, yeah, want to prove it. None of us have the perfect family. Your family may be one where things are going good. And if that's the case, then I want to challenge you. Go for a great family. Better yet, go for a godly family. Some of your families today are struggling. Maybe struggling in the marriage relationship. Maybe struggling between the sibling rivalries and fights. Maybe struggling mom and daughter, mom and son, dad and daughter, dad and son, whatever. And there's some of us that are hurting. Some of our families are just hanging on. Maybe ready to throw in the towel and say, we give up, we quit. No matter where your family is, as we have our time of invitation, myself, John, and Ryan are going to be standing here at the front. We just want to pray for you today. That's going to be our invitation. We just want to pray for your family. And if we have a lot of time, I've got some other deacons that are ready to come forward and to pray with the families that come. I want to just invite you as we have this time of invitation. I want to invite you to come and just let us pray for your family. If you've got something specific that you want us to pray for, tell us that as you come. But just let us pray for you. Pray that God would take your good family and make it into a godly family. And make your struggling family get on the right path. That He would mend relationships, whatever it is. Just come and admit those to God. And let us pray for you. Our Father in heaven, we know how you love families.